Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. Major 1 in Raleigh is over, but that does not mean the drama is over heading into the new year. The rumour has it Rostermania may be kicking off here during the off-season, with multiple teams possibly considering multiple changes over the next few weeks going into the Major 2 qualifiers. After some tragic performances from certain teams, what do you guys expect to happen, but what could realistically happen over the next couple of weeks in terms of Rostermania? Hit the like button if you enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Of course, the champions in New York subliners, they're not going to make any changes probably anytime soon as well after a result like this. They've won both Pro-Am tournaments so far. Last year with Crim and Paul, they won the Pro-Am event that they have there. This year they win a bigger Pro-Am event, but actually a Major 1 for the entire season. Quick note here as well on the COD Mobile side, because yesterday we saw the champions crowd on the COD Mobile World Championship as well. I think a $1.7 million tournament. And this is the beautiful map set they have. I mean, look at this. Hacienda, Raid, Slums, Firing Range, Standoff for the Game 5 or for the best of 5. Now, one note as well here that JP Krez gives from the OpTic side. Search and Destroy win by 2. What do you guys think about this? I've talked about this a little bit before as well, and I'm not sure I like the idea. I do love the fact that if it goes to a round 11, you know that it's one round shootout for it all. Now, what you could do is go for a win by 2, kind of like what happens in a tennis tiebreaker. You get to, like, you know, 5-5, and then the player has to get to 7, and then if it becomes 6-6, then you've got to go 8-6. You've got to win by 2, basically. Pretty standard procedure. Now, as JP Krez says, he saw a Game 5 round 20. So would you guys like to see this? I do like the idea of a round 11 just being, you know, goes to round 11, and the hype of a round 11 is kind of different, especially in terms of a grand final. Game 5 round 11 is a crazy moment. And I'm not sure I necessarily want to lose that, but at the same time, maybe there is some more, you know, fairness and equity in well, having a win by 2 situation in the Search and Destroy. So, yeah, interesting idea. They have it in COD Mobile, clearly, so they could probably add it into the regular Call of Duties if they so wanted to. This was the crazy bracket, of course, from yesterday, and many teams having good results here. Of course, Surge making the finals. They made the finals last year as well, right at Major 1, or the kickoff, sorry, before Major 1, where they lost to the Toronto Ultra in the finals there. So kind of crazy that they made the finals again. Accuracy, always a player that tends to understand the game great at the start of the season. I just wonder whether Seattle will have that kind of, you know, boomerang effect where they get good, they get terrible, they go back to being good again. I wonder if they'll have the same kind of a tenure and leash if that happens this season than they did last year with a relatively new team. So many teams on here placing either better than expected or kind of along the same lines. Ultra with a good performance. LA Thieves came top 6, but they lost to Ultra at the end of the day. Vegas Legion top 6 as well. But when you get from top 6 and below, that's when you start getting into the potential Rostermania change discussion conversation, because obviously Florida Mutineers came top 8 here, but they got bodied really by everyone they played that wasn't OpTic. I mean, it's kind of crazy to think about. They got 3-0'd by Los Angeles Thieves in the elimination side. Not a particularly impressive Thieves, let's be honest, this weekend. And then they did actually take a map off New York, which is kind of impressive in the winners bracket. But outside of that, I mean, look, they went, what, 1-6 in map count in the bracket play after playing OpTic. Not exactly ideal either. Now, look, it's a young team, the Mutineers. I don't expect them to make any changes just because they are building for the future. But, I mean, it's always been the case with Florida. If they want to actually achieve anything substantial and win an event or do something, like, they've got to do more than they're currently doing. I would say their kind of current trajectory for their team is to turn up, beat OpTic every event, and just inshallah, right, to see what happens from there. But if they really want to level up, they probably need to make a change. But I'd kind of be surprised if they do, just because I think this is where people thought they would. This is basically what Florida Mutineers always do, and it's expected from this team as well. So I don't know if they'll really be making any changes. But these were the overall results here. So the top teams, we don't have to worry about making moves. But Florida Mutineers and pretty much everyone there further down, because, I mean, look, you've got Boston and London. They were top 16 this weekend. Rokkr top 8. I mean, look, I think Rokkr still obviously stick with this roster, but it was a fair bit of an L for Rokkr this weekend as an organization. They paid a lot of money for this team. They brought these guys in, paid buyouts, whatever was necessary to make it happen. And then the players they dropped last year, or, you know, Standy was there, Priest was there. They go on to do phenomenal things with their respective teams. Does raise questions about that Minnesota Rokkr camp. And then if you didn't make the bracket, you didn't get any prize money. Guerrillas and even OpTic now in this category, and OpTic only have 20 points so far this season, which is, you know, subliners already have 85. So already there's quite the disparity there between the top and the bottom of the field. So which teams are most vulnerable here to potential Rostermania changes? Now, I just wanted to say this because it's kind of official now that Rogue is now becoming Koi. So the ownership group for the London side that's partnered with Rogue, they're now owned by Koi, which is the Spanish guys, aBeZy and co, the kind of Spanish streamers that are taking over the esports world, it seems. So that is now going to be a thing, and it's maybe only a matter of time until London becomes Madrid or whatever's going to happen there. But they also might make some moves over the coming weeks. This I thought was kind of spicy here from Arcitys. So Cellium tweets out, "Will be better, GG's New York," and Arcitys tweets out and replies, "I don't know if he's kind of saying, look, maybe you shouldn't have dropped me," but nonetheless, Arcitys can't really talk on that front if he's trying to, just because obviously the Los Angeles Guerrillas didn't have a good event either. So Ben Genesee mentioned this on the flank, and I even heard about this as well, that there was a possibility. It may not happen, of course. The teams may, not follow through with any changes, but usually this happens, right? Especially teams that go out on Thursday, Friday, and even maybe early Saturday. They go to the bar, they talk with other players, and they discuss potential team changes. Because look, we're already at Major 1, Major 2's coming up very soon indeed. This might be a great time to change because there's actually a gap now. There's actually a couple of weeks off between now and the start of the Major 2 qualifiers. After Major 2, there's maybe 1 or 2 weeks before the start of Major 3. You don't have those set roster change periods like we used to have way back in the MLG days. And obviously, if you underperformed heavily here with even amateur teams at the event, then how are you going to achieve when the season really gets serious in a couple of months' time? Maybe not so much at all. So teams understandably are considering moves, and potentially multiple will make changes and have certainly talked about the possibility. And once teams start talking about the possibility of making changes, it kind of becomes an inevitability. Whether it happens now or in like a month or so's time, who knows? But like, look, Parasite's making it very clear who he expects to be making changes, because yesterday the Los Angeles Guerrillas tweeted out their challengers champions who won the event. Of course, we've got Exceed, DiamondCon, Assault, and Joe Thieves. Now, even as Parasite says, the LAG Pro team is doing a signing at their booth. There's like, what a dagger here from Parasite. I thought he was going to delete this one. But quite the tweet, right? Because he's basically saying, yeah, this team is better than their actual main roster. And you can't really deny that fact right now. I'd love to see what happened if they actually matched up this weekend. Didn't happen, unfortunately. But yeah, very spicy stuff. And even because Arcitys comes in the replies, and yeah, good job gunning the team you coached. So what do you expect to happen here? Because obviously they've got a strong line. They've got DiamondCon there. So Assault is the main AR. He's not going to be replacing Arcitys. DiamondCon, though, on that kind of flex position, there is an argument that he should be replacing Spart. There's also an argument to say that minus Neptune plus Exceed or something, minus Neptune plus Joe Thieves is also a viable way to go. I wouldn't be surprised at all if LAG decide to make at least 2 changes to their roster, because clearly that core of Spart, Neptune, and Huke, they decided to build around it. I don't think anyone really thought that was a good idea. They've gone to one event, they've got smoked to that event online and on LAN. LAG didn't even show up in the Search and Destroys, and obviously Spart and Arcitys are on those crazy 3-year long-term deals, so the obvious candidates to get benched are Huke and Neptune, and I feel like you probably get rid of one of those first. I wouldn't necessarily bring in the entire SMG line of the Academy, but I would try minus Neptune plus one of the SMGs on this team, either Exceed or Joe Thieves, see how that goes. I just feel like Huke has been a bit more impressive so far than Neptune has, a few more pop-off games, and that seems like the inevitable change to be made, just because, the AR line as it stands are locked in for a very long time. Now, there's an argument to say that Spart goes to the bench, they pay him less money, keep him around as a kind of perfect substitute player for the team, which is true, but nonetheless a bit of a weird situation. Now, we've also obviously got to talk about OpTic Texas, right? Because they had a terrible weekend, top 12 for them, losing to Florida Mutineers and getting destroyed by Toronto in the groups. If they'd have made it out of the groups, I don't think they were getting far at all. They would have lost to New York, and then they would have lost to Los Angeles Thieves. I'm pretty convinced about it, based on the way that OpTic were playing. And I'm sure they're probably a little bit frustrated that they could have got Hydra. He was a free agent. They could have signed him, and they didn't. They stuck with their roster, and was that indeed a massive mistake? Now, even Ronnie here pointing out some of the other mistakes they might have made in terms of their coaching department, and I've got to share this clip here from Akes where he talks about iLLeY, and I mean, yeah, very thinly disguised, complete roast on iLLeY's ability and even playmaking this weekend, basically comparing him to a trash can. I mean, there's no punches pulled on this one.
Now, I don't know how...
Guys, listen, I'll break it down for you.
Hey, Slade, break it down.
All
Also,
right.
bad, you got to fix the camera. It looks terrible.
Yeah. So we're doing the show. We're here. We're live.
Oh, go ahead, Pat.
Zinni comes over
No
to
way.
hop on. We're in the middle of map 1. Zinni sits
way.
down, and then iLLeY walks by and hits the power.
Yo, Hinder's home, bro. He flew out this morning.
Well, no, that's that big trash can right there.
Hey, bro, it's not right, bro. Yeah, you're good, man. You're good, bro. It looks good now.
Listen, guys, the big trash like dumpster that was coming by and collecting the trash.
Bro, Slade can't be serious. Why is he always throwing shots,
It tipped the power cord.
No way, Slade. No way.
So do you guys think it's too early for OpTic Texas to consider a change? I probably do. I would be very surprised if OpTic Texas make a change now. We did say before the season that like this team has a short leash if they fail to perform. Like, look, we know that Shotzzy and maybe Scump to a certain extent wanted wanted to get rid of Dashy and iLLeY. Like, that was the plan, that was the move, and we thought, you know what, how's the chemistry going behind the scenes? They said, yeah, the chemistry's fine, guys, nothing to worry about, and it probably was okay, but you get one top 12 placing, the worst one in ages for Scump and these guys' career, certainly in the CDL era, and all of a sudden, those conversations are getting raised again. I'm sure there's some friction going on there. I don't know what Shotzzy's thinking now about Dashy and iLLeY, because he was probably thinking, you know, I tried to drop you guys in the off-season, and maybe I should have done, which is really never a good place to be. So, look, the issue that OpTic have to find is, what do you actually do? Are there any options out there? Because, if you get rid of iLLeY, who are you going to bring in for him? If you get rid of Dashy, who are you going to bring in for him? There isn't really a clear candidate. Hydra's locked up. Of course, you know, Cammy's locked up. Scrappy's locked up. All the players that you might want are now under deals. Even Arcitys from LAG, they just signed him to a 3-year contract for a bag. He's not just going to go to OpTic. Like, I feel like that's incredibly unlikely. So OpTic have some serious questions to answer. And if they can't find a clear upgrade, they've probably got to say, you know what, let's try and do an LA Thieves, stick with it, and make it work with this set of 4. But let's say some other kind of relatively big name team with some good talent happens to be changing. I do think that Seattle getting top 2 here was not a good look for OpTic, just because I think that a Seattle blow up could be the ideal circumstance for OpTic to actually try and make a change and get one of those guys onto their team. But with Seattle doing well, that lowers the chance of that. So I don't expect OpTic to do anything, but if they underperform at Major 2, like let's say they get top 8 or worse at Major 2, like I think iLLeY's probably a dead man walking at that point in terms of staying on this roster. The other 2 teams, of course, top 16, Ravens and Breach. So these are the obvious candidates to me, along with LAG, to potentially change. I don't know what you guys think about Breach, just because Beans subbed in and did a good job, but like, who does Beans actually replace here? What do you do to make the team better? Subbing Beans in for Awakening, I'm not sure that necessarily improves, and if you get rid of Methods, I don't really think that helps from the leadership side. So I'm not convinced that changing is worth it for Boston necessarily. I'd like to see like just how they go for another couple of weeks, but maybe they're going to change, especially if we saw multiple teams considering it. And then London changing, I would not be surprised about this at all. We know they've got a potential substitute there in Scraps. Even Paul X tweeted this out last night with the kind of upside down smiley face emoji, implying that yeah, he's not particularly happy as it stands. So yeah, maybe Paul got dropped for Scraps, I don't know, or what they're even thinking there in London. But yeah, if you come top 16 and get outplaced by some amateurs, you've got to be considering moves. And if multiple teams are considering moves, there could be, people have been talking about the kind of assault rifle musical chairs here, where Methods goes to one team, Arcitys goes to another team, Accuracy goes to another team, or they all kind of swap around teams. I don't know if that's going to happen. But yeah, what do you guys think in the comment section below? Relatively difficult to predict here. And I just wanted to note this as well, because I mentioned this in last night's video, but it is interesting. And I didn't really want to mention on Twitter specifically about the whole coaching side. But this is, you know, I don't think necessarily this is a matter of, you know, being a cursed organization, Rokkr. But, you know, I definitely think there will be some questions raised about their coaching staff. Just because Standy and Priester last season, and even Priester for the season before, were pretty terrible every single series they played, without exception, really, especially in the respawns. And now all of a sudden this season, with some superstar players, with maybe the exception of Afro, they've just looked pretty mid so far. So I don't think that Rokkr, if Rokkr are going to make a change, which they might at some point, I think it's going to be a coaching change first before an actual player change, because there's been too many questions coming out of that camp, I feel like, for the last couple of years. But very much enjoyed your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.